This is by far the most important aspect of Gran Turismo 7 and racing in general. So in this video, we will cover how to actually understand your brakes and how to get the proper feel of those brakes, what kind of improvement you should be expecting over the long run, and how to apply this knowledge and eventually get quicker around the circuit. I think the first part of the journey is actually starting to understand your brakes, because I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of braking pedal you have. I know load cells will help, but in general, the most important part is always to understand how much pressure are you applying. So in general, this is something that I always do before I get onto the rig, and this is always, well, the crucial element when I'm testing new cars and I'm testing new equipment, and this is how to apply 25, 50 and 75% of braking. And I do this every once in a while. I mean, I kind of got used to my own brakes, but in general, this is something that really helped me in the long run, and this is what helped me to achieve that consistency around the circuit. So I always want to know 25, 50 or 75% of pressure is there, and in general, if I'm applying enough pressure or if I should maybe release a little bit or kind of get a little bit more pressure onto the brakes. So the first part of the journey is how to understand your brakes, and in general, how to figure out where exactly your foot is. I know this is going to take a while. Do not expect improvement in 5 minutes, but over the next couple of weeks, if you start implementing this, let's say just a couple of minutes before you get into racing, you will eventually make, well, this will eventually make a lot of difference. I mean, unless you change your brakes in the end. So let's say you fixed your first problem, and now the biggest problem of it all is actually how much braking pressure you should apply and how to detect and, well, where actually to apply that braking pressure. So in general, we have a couple of braking zones and we have a couple of different types of braking zones. Some require gradual and partial braking pressure. Some require like a step onto the brakes 100% and brake in the straight line. So there are various different type of corners, but in general, I like to divide them into 3 types. And that's about how you partially apply the brakes as you're getting into the turn. We got one that you're actually braking in the straight line, and there is kind of a hybrid where you just, let's say, well, it's basically trail braking, which we will cover in the later part of this video. But if we have a look at the first corner at Kyoto, you will see that I'm not applying 100% of braking and turning at the same time. So this allows me to carry much more speed into the corner while having even more consistency than usual. So if you start to apply 100% of brakes and then just release them, you're losing a lot of speed on entry instead of carrying that speed all around the place and just, well, using the curbs to rotate the car. So in general, the first part at Kyoto was always get up to 50% of brakes as you're starting to turn in, and then eventually you release the brakes as you're kind of 50% into the turn. So this will allow the car to get even more speed through the corner, and of course you will get even more consistency. On the other hand, we have a couple of corners where you just need to brake in the straight line and then slowly start releasing the brakes. But if you have a, let's say, a straight line braking zone, we can think of it as, well, we can think of Monza. Monza turn 1 is a pretty good example where you just brake in the straight line, you start releasing the brakes, and that's pretty much about it. Especially this first part is so important because I know I talked about in the previous part of this video is that when you need to start applying 25, 50 or 75% of braking, and this will eventually make a lot of difference because now you're, instead of applying 100% of braking, you're just applying 50 and carrying much more speed through this whole section. Well, you've covered all of these things, but now you're still slow and you're constantly thinking, okay, what is actually wrong with the things that I'm doing? Well, the most common mistakes are that the braking pressure isn't applied quick enough. So your braking inputs are too slow. On the other hand, I see a lot of variations where people just go on and off the brakes. So instead of holding the brakes for a long time, you're just coming on and off the brakes as you're starting to get into the turn, which is usually the most common one. So try to stick with your braking pressure and hold it at that one point. Usually in a straight line braking zone, it's 100%. Sometimes 50. I know it can be really difficult, but eventually, as I said before, after a couple of months or maybe even after a couple of weeks, you will actually feel the difference. So stay on that braking pressure. Let's say it's 50%. Try to get quickly up to 50% and hold it right there. If you have successfully figured all of this out, you will eventually be quicker because I don't think there is anything stopping you at this point. Maybe something. But okay, let's say we figured all of this out and you still want to get a little bit more speed out of the corner. And this is where trail braking comes into play. And you have probably heard about trail braking and how it works. So basically trail braking is gradually decreasing the braking pressure as you're getting into the corner or as you're starting to turn in to the corner. And I think this concept is very difficult to master, but over the longer periods of time, you will eventually see that the first step of this video will eventually get you better in trail braking, because now you know how to get up to 100%, you know how to decrease your braking pressure to 75, you know where the 50 is, and then in the end, you know where 25% is. Of course, we cannot do this in steps of 75, 50, and 25, but it also needs to be a gradual decline to eventually cope with all of the forces into the turn. So what are the actual benefits of trail braking? I would say those are more grip on the front of the car, which will eventually help you to brake much later than usual. You will have more grip as you're getting into the corner. You will have more rotation. Well, rotation is the common term in racing, so don't roast me in the comments. And in the end, you will have better cornering speed, which will allow you to get more speed around the corners, and well, it does help with consistency. So in general, what is happening? You're slowly decreasing the braking pressure as you're getting into the corner, because you're just getting more rotation because the front of the car is getting more grip and the back of the car is getting looser. Although I do not recommend trail braking a lot with MR cars because they can be quite unstable. But let's say F4 cars and we're at turn 1 and turn 2 at Brent's hatch. You will see that I'm slowly decreasing the braking pressure as I'm applying more turning inputs, which will again allow me to use 100% of grip as we're getting into the turn, and well, it's going to make my turning and my cornering speeds a lot better and a lot more efficient. And as you're gradually getting off the brakes, so the turning inputs needs to slightly increase. So gradually getting off the brakes and also gradually increasing the steering inputs, which will eventually help you to use all of that 100% of grip there is. And eventually you will get more rotation and the car will become even more stable through the corner. Sometimes it's not stable if you're not using the right setup, and that's exactly why we have setups down in the description if you want to use them. And this is also something that I cover in my online course, which has a detailed explanation of exactly what you need to do in Gran Turismo and what should work and what shouldn't work, or actually what works and what doesn't work. So in the end, I would say getting to know your brakes is the most important part. Getting to know 25, 50 and 75% of braking will help you in the long run. As I said before, do not expect improvement in just a couple of minutes. This will take time, but once you learn it, you will have that skill that's going to stay with you for a very, very long time. So that's the first part of this whole journey, and then it's to analyze what type of corner it is. If it's a gradual or partial braking zone, or you need to apply the braking pressure at 100%. Of course, you can go and watch the fastest guys in the world do their own thing, and it will save you eventually a lot of time. And in the end, I would say analyzing, because in the end, this will make a lot of difference and you will actually start to feel the benefit if you start analyzing your own mistakes. So I think this pretty much sums it up. So if you enjoyed in this video, guys, please let me know down in the description, and you might even want to consider subscribing to the channel. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, bye.